Hello, Moon to Moon. Welcome to this episode where I want to talk about claiming your own unique approach to astrology. I'm making this as a video that I'm going to be putting in YouTube. You may or may not know, listeners, that I post all of my episodes in YouTube, almost always as audio files only. But I had a couple of visuals that I thought I would share in this one. And now and then, I think it's fun to do a video for Moon to Moon. So if you're seeing this in YouTube, hello, welcome to my channel, as they say. I'm really a beginner to YouTube and so happy to have you here. Hope you will subscribe and do the usual things. And otherwise, hello, listeners, where you usually find me. I hope that you are doing well. So, if you know my work, you know that I have claimed a very unique approach to astrology. I had my first client in astrology just over 7 years ago in April of 2018. And I had only found my chart. I only found out that charts exist 6 months before that. Really dove in, really got obsessed, and for the most part was round the clock teaching myself astrology, but in very funky, unique ways that involved a lot of mysticism and intuitive relationship building with the frequencies of the planets and signs as they were coming into my field. I came to astrology as a growing mystic. I was growing in my mysticism. It was my mysticism that was just pummeling me onto a new path, into a new way of being. It was my mysticism that guided me out of my marriage. It was my mysticism that guided me away from the PhD that I only had a few more years to complete. It was my mysticism that was guiding me to understand myself in new ways erotically, to know myself as an entrepreneur, something that was completely new to me. My mysticism was taking me places. And one of the places that it took me was to my chart. This came through my brother, who is an Aquarius sun and moon, also Mercury, if we're really counting. And he was living in California at the time and sent me my chart because he knew me to be on a very mystical pathway. Like looking over at sister, like, she's looking for support. Maybe this could help her. And because I was so open, I received my birth chart in a way that maybe a year before that, I wouldn't have even been able to process it. Who knows? I didn't know birth charts existed until the fall of 2017. And I looked at my chart and I knew that I would be able to read it. I knew that I would be able to understand its messages. I knew that this was a language that I was being invited to remember. But I wanted teachers to come help me do that. And I was very open to those teachers, including the non-human, including the planets, including the animated world all around me at a time when things were going more quiet for me in the human realm. And I was trying to get away from other people's voices of influence on my life. And so many of you know this story already, but I found my way into an approach that just slowly unfurled as I showed up to it. And by early 2022, I decided to start calling myself and my approach Emergence Astrology, because the word emergence had become so central. It was like the word that I was repeating and repeating and repeating. And the word emergence really came to me as through the voice of Tokopah Turner in her book, Belonging, Remembering Ourselves Home. And I actually quote it in my book, Living Astrology, which came out last year. And I think I'm going to read it to you right now because it's kind of a big deal quote to get into my approach. So this is Tokopah Turner, who I put this at the start of part 2 of Living Astrology. Isn't that beautiful? Emergence never happens all at once. It is a slow stepping into the expanded capacity of your next self. You may need practice at releasing in those places you've grown accustomed to bracing, which, like a tight swaddle, was comforting in its limits. But when the time to remain hidden comes to its natural end, you must begin to inhabit your new dimensionality. Breathe into the fullness of your gaining altitude and consider that what presents itself as fear may actually be exhilaration. As your future approaches you, worry less how it may receive you and say a prayer instead for your becoming approachable. Yeah, Tokopah Turner, Belonging, Remembering Ourselves Home. So this phrasing was really important to me because lunar cycle to lunar cycle, moon to moon, that became the name of my podcast, I was noticing how there were parts of me wanting to emerge. And meanwhile, there were other parts of me wanting to brace against this and to kind of keep myself in this tight swaddle that I felt comfortable inside. This is kind of cute because I was just telling my boyfriend yesterday that I'm like a top swaddler of babies. And he was like, nobody could beat my swaddle. And we were very competitive speaking about our swaddle tactics. The swaddle, though, like the swaddle, keeping us safe. We like feel the containment, it feels good. But when we're feeling these new ways of being emerging, they're emerging. There's this softening that wants to happen with these parts of us that brace, these more hypervigilant parts of us, and the stance, like the attitude, the invitation is to inhabit this approachability, this capacity to be approachable to the part of us that's wanting to emerge, that's feeling called into emergence. I also love this word emergence because it has this other meaning that has to do with when local, individual, idiosyncratic behavior begins to have impact on collective movement. And in this way, each of us, human beings, in a fractal way, can have impact on collectivities and on collective pathways and in collective visioning and in collective realities through the idiosyncratic local emergence processes that we're engaging with for ourselves. And it works both ways very, very powerfully. And it's really important, I have found to be true, that like the more committed you are to collective change, that you're staying as committed to personal, local, individual change, idiosyncratic, emergent change for yourself. And that unfolds like then with larger impacts in the collective around you, in the fields around you. We're always affecting each other through the webs and through the fields. All right. So, I was speaking about claiming your own way with astrology. So, in the time that I've been like building out a feeler relationship to astrology and a subjective relationship to astrology, which is really a counter in many ways, but I wasn't trying to be. It's an alternative in many ways to a relationship to astrology that is more heady, that is more mental, as well as one that is more like objective, technique based, following the rules and like doing it right by your teachers and by your lineages within astrology. I was finding this way with astrology that loved and enjoyed and was obsessed with the intellectual pleasure that is astrology. Like it's a wonderful place for nerdy folks like me to just nerd out conceptually and abstractly. And it's also a place to get very detailed about things like the mathematics of the chart and the specificities of the chart. Like it's a very specific thing. But on the other hand, I don't really understand what the point of that is. What would I even be doing it for if it for me ultimately wasn't about creating a liberating experience for myself and anyone I'm in contact with, a supportive, nurturing, nourishing relationship to myself and anyone who I'm in contact with? If it's not ultimately about my own empowerment and the empowerment of anyone that I may be interfacing with, and helping me to be here embodied on the planet Earth as a human being in this particular lifetime. So I wanted to relate to astrology always from this place of satisfying myself intellectually, but especially at a spirit level and at an emotional level. And then as I dropped deeper into my healing pathway, it became so clear and evident that this also needed to become a somatic and an embodied relationship to the language as well. It was always so clear to me from the very beginning that astrology is not separate from the rest of our lives. Like once you let it into yourself, you are a part of it and it is part of everything that you do. It's not a separate thing that you can like go to and close up. It is it lives inside of us, it lives through us, and it lives around us. And so I just have always wanted to just keep speaking to everything that I see with astrology. And while also as a teacher and as an astrologer, wanting to also honor the speakers of astrology, the writers of astrology, the historians of astrology, the leaders of astrology, the voices of astrology who have brought us to this particular moment that we happen to be inside, and to honor the brilliant things that they've discovered, the brilliant techniques that they've revealed through their dedication, their devotion, and their researches. I do feel that astrology is adaptive and it is not the same in different time periods because it is very relational to the experience on the planet Earth that we humans are capable of describing with something like language. And so it feels true to me that astrology wants to adapt and to mutate according to what the local, individual, idiosyncratic human, in this case, you or me, may be wanting to be in relation, how we want to be in relationship. It's adapting to us. And as it changes us and as we mutate from that relationship, so then we mutate the field around us based on the relationship that we cultivated from our deep devotion to the language. And so, this is all prelude, by the way. And so it came to be that as I taught astrology, I began to notice like certain ways of framing different types of speaking of astrology and what they were each doing to support me, support us in coming to our own unique approach and to our own unique way. So what I want to share with you is a couple of slides that come from my Emergence Astrology Year 1 container. I have, and I'm promoting to you honestly and directly right now, I have a 3-year experience. It's the Emergence Astrology experience, and it happens inside of my Emergence Astrology school. A lot of stuff goes in my school. I am a mentor to magicians and a mentor to mystics. I support you in getting louder in your work and supporting you in getting paid for your work and supporting you in being visible in your work and supporting you in unshaming whatever taboo you've internalized from overculture that may keep you quiet about your unique, intuitive, mystical, magical gifts. So a lot's happening over at my school, but my astrology teaching space, which is also a mysticism teaching space, is the Emergence Astrology experience, and it's a 3-year program. You can do 1 year, you can do 2 year, or you can go all the way. We started it last year with year 1. So I'm just finishing the first ever year 1. And the cohort that is finishing is now getting ready to shift into year 2. Which will be a completely new experience. Like we're inside the larger theme, but it's a new experience and new things are happening to deepen and to develop and to expand everything going on in year 1. So if you are curious about just what goes on in this space and learning more about it, I'm encouraging you to stay attuned to the promo that I'm sharing, promo like this, where I'm letting you inside the space and like the vibe of the space, the kinds of questions we're asking in the space, the kinds of concerns that we have in the space, like what is on our hearts, what is in our heads, how is our spirit guiding us, what are our bodies wanting and needing from us. These concerns that I'm bringing them to you today because I'm giving you a peek inside of the concerns that are part of this community. These are my colleagues that come into the space. They're paying me as their teacher, but really I'm the steward of a larger project that is Emergence Astrology that I'm inviting my student community to co-create with me. Together, we are creating what Emergence Astrology is. All along my pathway of claiming my own way with astrology, I have been just following the little bit I'm getting and the little bit I'm understanding. I didn't set out to create this whole new approach to astrology. I was just following where my passions were taking me, following the questions that I wanted to live into, following the next most appropriate healing spiral for my younger selves, for me to carry them in present time so that I could expand my swaddle a little bit more and emerge a little bit more audaciously into my pathway. Most of the time when I'm offering something, I don't fully know what I'm doing. Like air comes last for me, we could say. The verbal descriptions, like what is the language to describe what's happening here? That for me is like the last thing that happens. And I usually get the language from interfacing with other humans who are in contact with my work. And they tell me what this feels like to them. They tell me what's happening to them while they're in contact with my voice and with my containers. And then I start to understand a bit more about how to describe what I'm doing. But a lot of the time, I put something out there because I am so devoted to my visions and I'm so devoted to carrying through the instructions that I feel like I'm getting, that I will do it and figure out the language later. So that would be like one of the things that I would encourage you. If you're wanting to feel like you're claiming your own approach with astrology, is really just allow your curiosity, your questions, your hunger, your thirst, just the next thing that's coming, the next thing coming in, just keep following that. And along the way, you will start to have answers. Along the way, you will start to have language that describes what you're doing. And so, yes, I wanted to share with you some of the slides from one of our meetups this spring. In Emergence Astrology Year 1, we have this really funky structure whereby the first 9 months, it's called the Hermitage, and we don't see each other. Nobody meets. You don't even know who your peers are. But I'm guiding you through the course platform to engage with a buffet of delights, some of which you may not be interested in, some of which you will love to be interested in. Maybe you'll be interested in all of it. Maybe you'll be interested in none of it because it's not for everyone. It's designed to support you in coming into deeper and deeper sovereignty with yourself as a self-leader who's propelling yourself into your own learning exploration and your own learning experience. So I'm there like giving you stuff to kind of you know, like the bananas on your marathon, like I'm handing you bananas, I'm like handing you stuff to take, like, thanks, Britten. And you're the one going, like, you're the one doing this. I'm just over here. I've got lots of tables with lots of stuff to keep you fueled, to keep you going. And like you want to take rest stops, you want to skip certain things, that's completely you. You want to do some shortcuts off the marathon route. If we're going to just really take this analogy as far as we can, you can do that because that's part of being in charge, That's what we mystics do. We're in charge. We're in charge. That's why mystics are great entrepreneurs. We're redefining entrepreneur for mystics. And we're redefining mystics to include the entrepreneurial because being mystical naturally leads you into entrepreneurial life, I would argue. If you want to be visible and exchanging in the world with the gifts that you receive from your mysticism, it's going to take you into an entrepreneurial path because our economic system is really not set up for mystics to feel like they have a lot of agency and leadership and empowerment and delight with the given structures. So you're going to want to find your own pathway and be an entrepreneur, I would say, if you want to be out there with your gifts, exchanging, participating in the forum. That's a whole nother class. Here we are really tuning into the mysticism piece of like, what does it take to build up the inner fortification, the inner scaffolding, to really trust ourselves, what is coming in? What are we seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing as mystics? What is the gnosis that we know is true for us? Gnosis, Gnosis. Gnosis is from like Gnosticism. It means wisdom. So mystics are any human who is interested in direct personal experience of their gnosis and having a subjective relationship with divinity. So when it comes to astrology, if you want a mystical relationship to astrology, you're going to be on a pathway where you are your own teacher. You are the primary teacher of yourself, because this is about creating opportunities for direct, personal, subjective contact with your guidance and with the cosmos as it shows up all over the place, through people's mouths, through the food that you put into your mouth. A lot of mouth there. The animated world, the cosmos is everywhere. It's right here in front of us. We are the cosmos. It's not just up there. It's constantly talking to you and giving you information. It's constantly guiding you. It's constantly helping you understand that everything is connected. And you are getting like loud signposts all the time, helping you understand that pathway. Like, what's your pathway? The mystical pathway is constantly honoring and validating the signs that you're receiving. So a mystical relationship to astrology, like I teach in Emergence Astrology Year 1, begins with a hermitage, because we're building out the tools of the mystic, the skills of the mystic, the practices of the mystic. And a big part of that is also going to be an unshaming practice, which is a whole other thing that I teach in unshaming your chart and unshaming the signs. Unshaming is a practice of self-attunement and compassion to come into present time with the parts of us that are still living in the past shame. It has to do with witnessing ourselves and validating the experiences that we actually really have had in the past, but also recognizing that the past is the past is present because it feels real, but we're not in the past anymore. We're in present time. So when we unshame, what we do is we're repairing self-trust, and we're learning to be the ones that give ourselves permission to have boundaries, to protect ourselves, to live our own fucking life. That's very mystical, because a mystic is not waiting for permission from caregivers, from overculture, from affiliation groups. Like, a mystic is sovereign. And so what is a mystical relationship to astrology going to look like then? If it's about cultivating your own personal gnosis, validating what's coming through your channels, becoming your own teacher, and really unshaming that you have permission to do this. You can claim this for yourself. So something that I brought through, I'll share with y'all in class. We met in the spring. Then, after the 9 months of the hermitage, we have been having a spring salon. So you meet everybody at a big weekend initiation, and we just dive in. And it's like so wild to be together because everybody's like been like an imaginary friend this whole time. And what happens is every other week, you're either meeting in a larger group with me where I'm giving teachings, but we're having tons of dialogue, or you're meeting in small groups with my teaching assistant, who is incredible, and it's facilitating opportunities to share your own gnosis. So you are invited to hold the mic and let yourself feel yourself naming your gnosis and sharing your gnosis with others, while you also at the same time are witnessing, receiving, and celebrating the gnosis of your peers. And then just diving deeper. And it's my understanding that these small group meetups have been like absolutely fantastic, like huge success in terms of just like group experience. And I personally love the large group meetups. We just have the most incredible dialogue and the most incredible forum and I welcome interruption. I welcome questions, confusion. I want to hear what's coming through you as I like lob some really cool shit into the space. So like you're not just sitting back taking notes. Like no, like I'm bringing the fun stuff in, and then I want to like have y'all talk too, and we're together creating this like shared experience of knowing. So this is really fun for me because before my mystical life, the happiest place on earth for me was a graduate room, seminar room, just like sitting around a table, just nerding out together. Like it's the best feeling. I love it. I love bantering with like wit and pleasure and language and like feeling other people's wisdom. And somebody says something and you're like, "Ah, because you said that, now I'm it just like gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Like the field just keeps expanding and just keeps expanding because it's like so fun. Um, so what I love about these types of learning spaces is that I really get to be in that place of such expansive contemplation. And it's all just being held, is how it feels like to me, by the circle of animals, which we call the zodiac. It's being held by the planets, and I just like feel their joy in the way that we are connecting. It's like it's a language of connecting, astrology. It helps us be together and helps us hold each other. Meanwhile, we're also holding ourselves because this is a space for sovereignty. So I was just gonna pull it up and it was like, oh, looks like I didn't pull that up beforehand, but that's not a big deal. I can find it. Just stay tuned. We're not editing this video. That just takes too long. But let me see. I know what I'll do. I'm just gonna download this right now. And while that downloads, I'm gonna keep talking. So if you're interested in giving yourself an experience like this, we begin at summer solstice every year. There's only one opening a year. That's it. Summer solstice. Doors start opening early bird on February. I said February, but I meant Friday, Friday the 13th, June 13th. We have a 1 day only, $100 off early bird. Hope you can make it. And then we will begin at the solstice. I'm about to share with you. Here we go. Okay. So for those of you listening podcast, I'll describe what I'm going to share with you, and you'll be able to just follow along with your imagination and just listen. So in this particular class, I wanted to start the dialogue off with some kind of high level questions. And I shared how emergence astrology is one that acknowledges that the quote unquote the impossible is talking to us. The impossible is talking to us. And this is in many ways coming from what I call the that side. So you may have heard me share that I heard in with my guides last year in promo for Emergence Astrology Year 1, they sang to me, astrology has a this side and a that side. So what they were showing me is this like round image, almost like in like when you're sewing. I don't actually do this, but you know that like when the needle pulls through and then it goes back down, right? Stay with me. And you bind it with this like shape of a border to hold down the fabric as you're embroidering or needle and thread, whatever. And they were showing me that like the astrology as we learn it in books has a this side. And the this side is what we can see. Like if you were doing the needle and thread in your lap, right? That you're looking at the main thing. But they were showing me that there's also a that side. It's on the other side of the visible. And the emergence is what pokes through from the other side. And so they were showing me that like I really am interested in like trying to stick my head into these like hole spaces. Like what's going on the other side? What's going on over there? And this is really beautiful because for me it contextualizes my lifelong fascination with death and like behaviors that I used to feel so much shame over where would get close to death. And now it's contextualized. I've lost really important people in my life who died when I was younger. And I've wanted to understand like what's going on over there on the other side of the visible. What is there? And emergence astrology is interested in playing with the so-called impossible, meaning like you can't really do that. You can't verify that. You can't produce evidence that you saw that, you heard that, you feel that from the other side, that side of astrology. But in emergence astrology, we're very open to this because it's very real to you, the receiver. And to me, that is worthy of validating. No, it may just be for you, right? Like, is this gnosis something that will be resonant for everyone? Like, we are each our own determiners of what is resonant for us. So if it's valid for you, it's valid for you. And then when you share it with the group can feel into whether they want to incorporate that into their resonance field. So as such, the rules of astrology, the techniques that I'm sharing in this class, I told my students, the frameworks I offer here, none of this is meant to take away from your own knowing. Because here we are coming into the beginning of the spring salon, and I'm starting to like teach astrology in a more traditional way than everybody's been experiencing it from the Hermitage. And I want to acknowledge that your experience of astrology matters. So then I shared this really cool diagram that came to me in my journal, where on the one hand, we have like astrology truths. This is like the astrology that everyone agrees upon. Like Virgo is an earth sign. These are astrology truths. And in astrology classes, including in emergence astrology classes, we go through these because they're part of the scaffolding of astrology. And it's like, we hold these things to be true. We hold these things to be true. We, the larger body of people interested in astrology. Then there's astrology preferences, which to me, like if in the Venn diagram or this diagram, astrology truths is one large circle. And then next to it is astrology preferences. And then there's a small overlap that I'll talk about in a minute. Astrology preferences are not held to be true by everyone, but a lot of people prefer that particular method, that particular way of doing astrology. So an example would be if you decide that you have a preference for the whole sign house system or the Placidus house system, like you cultivate a preference. Maybe you got your preference from your teacher. I don't know how you got your preference. Your preferences are your business. Even if you come study with me, your preferences are your business. I like don't want to get involved in your preferences. That's for you. And I let my students know when I'm doing a preference, right? Because my preferences are not astrology truths. They're my preferences. And I think it's really important to stay like super open and liberated here, being honest as a teacher that I use a whole sign system. I'm not going to know how to answer your questions about Placidus. Like I have a preference for whole sign. I haven't looked at Placidus in years. So I can't really be a teacher there, but you can find teachers for Placidus if you want that. I mean, that's just being honest about your preferences and keeping it open for everyone. And then where do these two circles overlap? I would say inside of that larger swath is your approach to astrology. You begin to find an approach that is a blend of the truths that you've learned, the things that we hold to be true in astrology, like Mercury is the ruler of Virgo. If you want to claim that, your guides told you that there's another planet that rules Virgo, like that's amazing, but it is generally held to be true. And most of us, vast majority of us agree on certain things. Preferences is different. So your approach is blending truths with preferences. And then inside of that overlap, you start to sit down inside your own knowing. And when you're in your knowing, it's a very rooted place. And it takes time to root, it takes time. So you slowly over time begin to root into this is what I know as my approach, my knowing. We learn astrology truths through teachers, whether that's a YouTube teacher or you sign up for a class or you're reading a book or your friend is telling you things. And I feel that we really find our preferences through tinkering. At the beginning, when you're just learning, it's nice for someone to just tell you what house system to use. Like you got to start somewhere and you got to start developing some data and get some evidence about that particular preference. And then when you feel confident there, you might dabble in another preference. And only through tinkering are you going to really come into your preferences. The beginning, you may use the preferences of your teacher, but over time, you will want to cultivate your own sense of like, I've found this through tinkering. And that's how you fortify in self-trust. So to me, you come to this approach, your own approach, through relating to astrology with other human beings. To me, you can learn astrology by yourself in a solo way. And it can take you to such profound, deep places. It's so incredible to be on a hermit journey with astrology. This is part of what the hermitage is for. But ultimately, it explodes for you when you start speaking it with other human beings. It explodes. Like you can't believe how much faster you're expanding with your own sense of the language when you get in rooms with people, when you get in rooms. It's not just listening to podcasts. It's like getting yourself in a space with people talking across the room with one another, with the chat, raising your hand, throwing something in, like talking with other people is really how you just explode into your own approach. And I feel that you come deeper and deeper and deeper into your knowing, the more you're cultivating a direct relationship to your intuitive gnosis with that side of astrology, which is to say, through the unseen realms, through meditation, through like listening intuitively inside yourself and hearing something. It's mysterious where the voice came from, right? The more you practice, the more you may be like, I know where that came from. But the knowing gets deeper the more you are developing that inner rooting. So it's like inner rooting and external conversation together. It just starts to grow and grow and grow. And like this tree of knowledge and knowing mixed together just grows so richly in your own life garden. And then these next two slides are important to bring in here then too. There's so much about astrology is preposterous to our logical minds. Like, what? You're telling me that because Mercury looks like it's going backwards, which it actually is not, is the reason why like this is happening to me right now? Like, it can be so preposterous sometimes, like bonkers when we think about it, you know? And so much of this is also tied to how taboo astrology is in our culture and how impossible it is according to our scientists. Like there are parts of us that are very skeptical. And I always say, bring your self-doubt with you, because to me, a mystic is in an infinity loop relationship between self-trust and self-doubt all the time. Being a mystic does not mean you never have self-doubt. Self-doubt is along with you the whole time. And part of that doubt comes from like a critical thinking part of you that is struggling to trust this. And that's important. It's important to not bypass that part. At the same time, in order to play with the impossible, the invitation is to stay open. To play with the impossible, we can't shut it down. When you say that's impossible, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to go. That's a closed system. To stay open to magic, to stay open to possibility, we have to be willing to be playful and to be curious and to be experimental, even when we're bringing our critical thinking and our self-doubt with us. The impossible cannot talk to you unless you're open to the not possible. Would you rather be certain, or would you rather be amazed? I would rather be amazed, which means I have to watch myself talk, and I have to watch the way I talk about the world. I have to watch the way I talk about other people. When I say that things are not possible, well, looks like I think I know so much, you know? And no, from a mystical perspective, you live in the not knowing because you know that the unknown is what there is. That is just the way it is. We don't know. We do not have all the answers. And so, in order for you to be open and available and approachable to the emergent impossible becoming possible, you have to be open to the not possible. To avoid confusion, we often grasp for certainty. So we have a low tolerance for confusion in our culture. We have like low thresholds of like, I can't handle this level of confusion. I need to get to certainty immediately. I'm so uncomfortable. This is not our fault. We come by it honestly from our education systems. But we need to be aware of this as mystics and as astrologers, I would say. When the impossible is welcome, confusion can be a signal that we're staying receptive. You start to realize like, well, I'm confused, but that's a sign that I'm being open right now. That's a sign that I'm being open to the impossible becoming possible. So when you let yourself be in this position of not knowing everything, then you can become receptive to more data. Because like more data can come in when you're not trying and grasping and pushing for certain answers to come ASAP. So data that doesn't fit norms, that doesn't fit the templates, that doesn't fit the rules of what everybody else is saying will become allowed to stay on the table of evidence and on the table of the data that you're looking at. And so what I found to be true is that you find your own way with anything. Here, we're talking about astrology. You find your own way. You become the innovator. You become the original. You become the revolutionary in your field when you allow this anomalous data to be on the table with you. When you allow it to just, well, it doesn't really make sense. I've never heard anybody say that about Aries. But the data is here, so I'm just going to allow this to stay on the table and just see what happens over time. And you start to notice that patterns that other people aren't clocking about, in this case, Aries, because they're cutting that data out because it doesn't fit what their teacher said. It doesn't fit the current rules and templates. They're not going to see that data because they cut it out because it doesn't fit. So from this perspective, I'm not going any further. Yeah. In the slideshow, from this perspective, like you become the innovator, you claim your own way with astrology, which is the purpose of this little talk here. You claim your own way with astrology when you allow all the data to be on the table, including data that's contradictory, data that's paradoxical, data that is confusing to you, data that you don't understand why it's here. When you allow things going on in your life as you're relating to them vis-a-vis astrology, or talking with someone and hearing what they're saying, and you're thinking, I've never heard anyone say that about Gemini before, but this keeps coming up because I heard that from in a Gemini kind of situation over there. Huh. And as you start to like see the patterns cohere from the data, you start to realize that you want to be asking questions and you want to be having conversations that are really unique and are really original and can shift the field of conversation without you being like, I want to be an original. Like the idea is to follow what's interesting to you, including when it doesn't fit to what the astrology teachers have been saying. Claiming your own way comes from learning the truths, tinkering with the preferences, and ultimately like really devoting yourself to both an internal practice of listening as well as an external practice of having conversations with other human beings, which is going to be completely amazing because it's going to bring you into contact with sincerity, with truth, with the whole spectrum of humaning that is possible when humans speak astrology with one another. Humans speaking astrology with one another hold each other in ways that I've never seen happen in any other kinds of spaces. Humans speaking astrology together, at least in my own containers, I've actually don't know that I've been a student in anyone else's container. I've always had solo mentors that I studied one-on-one with. Yeah. So maybe it's in all of the containers. I'm just sharing what I've seen. It shocked me when I started teaching is seeing how people listen to one another, witness one another, attune to one another, hold one another, really are really there with one another in the human experience when we're speaking astrology together, especially when charts are involved. It's an extraordinary experience of humanity. It's an extraordinary experience of what humans can be with each other in community. And it's, for many, I've known over the years, some of the most spectacular connecting that you may find anywhere, honestly. So if this sounds like something that you want to fortify in yourself, if it sounds like you want to give this to yourself, to nurture yourself, to really give yourself experience and go on a huge journey like initiation, you're not going to be the same person as you move through all this. I'm inviting you to consider joining us in Emergence Astrology Year 1. I'd love for you to stay beyond that, of course, but Year 1 is also its own contained experience. All the information that you need is going to be in the show notes below, so you'll be able to learn all about the class, get answers, and just stay tuned for more promo because this is just like a little piece of the thematics. This is like a little piece of what we're doing together. And through the whole of the promo, you'll be able to sense into and feel into the larger story and see if it resonates for you. Thank you so much.